Most of what came out of the 2026 Beijing Auto Show followed a predictable script. More electric vehicles, more range announcements, more software integration, more of the same narrative about the industry leaving internal combustion behind. Great Wall Motor didn't entirely ignore that script, but they did something at the show that cut against it in a way that was genuinely unexpected. They confirmed that the Tank 700, their flagship SUV, is getting a V8 engine. In a domestic market that has moved faster than almost anywhere else in the world away from large displacement powertrains, that's a notable thing to announce. The reasoning behind it, though, is less surprising once you understand who this engine is actually being built for. The Tank 700 has been around long enough to establish a clear identity. It's a full-size, body-on-frame luxury SUV, the kind of vehicle that competes on ruggedness and presence as much as comfort, and that has always been positioned at the serious end of Great Wall's lineup. Existing variants have included a plug-in hybrid system built around a 3.0-liter twin-turbocharged V6, which delivers strong performance numbers and some electric-only capability. And the model has generally been well received among buyers looking for a large, capable SUV with more premium ambitions than Great Wall's earlier products suggested. The V8 announcement doesn't replace any of that, it adds to it, extending the powertrain options available, and more importantly, opening the door to markets where the existing engine lineup hasn't been enough to close the deal. Those markets, according to Great Wall's own statements, are primarily Australia and New Zealand. The company was specific about this, which is itself an interesting signal. They're not making vague noises about global export ambitions and leaving the details undefined. They've named the places where they think a V8-powered Tank 700 makes commercial sense, and the reasoning is fairly transparent. Australian buyers in particular have a long-established culture around large, capable SUVs and utes. Towing capacity matters there, in a way that it doesn't in most urban European or Chinese contexts. The psychological and practical weight of an 8-cylinder engine, the torque characteristics, the durability under load, the simple fact of what it represents to a buyer who spends weekends towing a boat or a horse float, isn't something you can fully replicate with a smaller turbocharged unit, however clever the engineering. Great Wall has clearly been listening to feedback from that market, and this announcement is the response. It's worth being honest about what isn't known yet, because the details that would let you fully assess this engine are still missing. Great Wall hasn't released specifications, no displacement confirmation beyond early indications, no power figures, no torque numbers, no fuel economy claims. What has been clarified is that this V8 is not the same unit being developed for the company's upcoming supercar project. That's a 4.0-liter twin-turbocharged hybrid V8 built for a very different application and a very different performance target. The Tank 700's engine is expected to be more conventionally configured, tuned for the specific demands of a large, heavy SUV, rather than optimized for outright performance. That distinction matters because it shapes what kind of driving character the vehicle will actually have. A high-revving, performance-oriented V8 and a torque-focused, durability-tuned V8 are quite different things to live with, and the Tank 700 clearly needs the latter. Electrification is almost certainly going to be part of the package in some form. This is partly about emissions compliance. Getting a large displacement V8 through the regulatory requirements of the markets where Great Wall wants to sell it will likely require some degree of hybridization, and partly about the genuine engineering benefits that hybrid assistance brings to a powertrain like this. Great Wall has already demonstrated with their existing hybrid systems that they understand how to integrate electric motors with turbocharged engines effectively. The current Tank 700 PHEV setup is a reasonably sophisticated piece of engineering, with the electric components contributing meaningfully to both performance and efficiency rather than just serving as a compliance measure. The expectation is that the V8 variant will follow a similar approach, a plug-in hybrid configuration that uses electric assistance to supplement the engine and meet regulatory requirements, while preserving the fundamental character that buyers in the target markets are actually paying for. The four-wheel drive hardware that underpins the Tank 700 is already well suited to the kind of use these buyers have in mind. Body-on-frame construction, proper low-range transfer case capability, the kind of underbody protection and approach angles that matter when you're driving somewhere genuinely remote. These aren't features that have been added for show. The Tank 700 has off-road credentials that hold up to scrutiny, which is one of the reasons it's been able to build a reputation in markets where buyers are knowledgeable and demanding about these things. A V8 powertrain option doesn't need to invent a capability story from scratch. It's being added to a vehicle that already has one. The broader strategic picture here is about where Great Wall wants to sit in the global market over the next decade. The company's ambitions have been scaling up, and the Tank brand specifically has been positioned as their play for the premium, capable SUV segment internationally, not just the Chinese domestic market, where the competitive landscape and regulatory environment are quite different. To compete against established players like Toyota's Land Cruiser, or against American trucks and SUVs in markets where those have strong followings, you need to be able to offer what those vehicles offer. A V8 option isn't nostalgia for its own sake. It's table stakes in certain segments, and Great Wall is making the calculation that the investment required to develop and certify the engine is justified by the market opportunity it unlocks. There's also something worth noting about the contrast this creates with the domestic Chinese market. China has moved remarkably quickly toward electrification. Government policy has pushed hard in that direction, and consumer preferences have shifted accordingly. Large displacement engines are increasingly a niche product there, and the regulatory trajectory suggests that niche will only get smaller. Great Wall clearly understands this, which is why the V8 Tank 700 is being developed as an export product rather than a domestic one. The same company can build EVs for Shanghai and VI SUVs for Sydney without those things being in contradiction, as long as the business is structured to manage both markets on their own terms. That kind of segmented global strategy is more complicated to execute than a single unified product direction, but it reflects the reality that the global automotive market isn't actually moving in one direction at the same pace everywhere. What remains to be seen is how the timeline develops. Great Wall has confirmed the engine is coming, but hasn't attached a launch date to it, which leaves the announcement in that somewhat uncertain territory where intent is clear, but delivery is still a future promise. Pricing, specific market launch plans, the exact nature of the hybrid system, the final power and torque figures, all of this still needs to be confirmed before the V8 Tank 700 can be properly evaluated against the competition it's targeting. The announcement at Beijing was a statement of direction rather than a product launch, and there's always some distance between those two things. But the direction itself is clear enough, and it's an interesting one. At a moment when the dominant industry narrative is about convergence toward electrification, Great Wall is making a deliberate bet that the world is more varied than that narrative suggests, that there are significant markets with significant numbers of buyers who want something different, and that serving those buyers well is a viable and profitable strategy. The Tank 700 V8 is the most concrete expression yet of that bet.